This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome to an inaugural visit here. Not of me, of course. You've heard my voice if you're familiar. I am, of course, one of your hosts today, Miranda Berthold, and I'm bringing to you, with one of my lovely best friends, a wonderful new podcast that we hope that you enjoy called Bells with Books. So if you enjoy books or reading or just a discussion of books, maybe you don't read too much, sit down and strap in and join us here today. And of course, I said I am not alone. I have one of my wonderful best friends here with me, Miss Bianca Jimison. Hello,
Hola.
Bianca. Hola. Hello. So how are you doing today?
I am fantastic. I found a toy on Brad's desk. It's like a little squishy for your hands.
Oh, I love this.
I've been playing with that.
Fidget toys. That's what they're for. I don't have one. I was just playing with the random key fob tag that hopefully doesn't make too much noise. So, as I mentioned, this is going to be in our inaugural episode here of Bells with Books. We hope to come to you once a month discussing the reads that we are enjoying. Maybe we'll even discuss the ones that we're not enjoying because, well, we like to tell you what we think. So today we thought we'd just give you a little glimpse into who we are. I feel like many of you are going to be like, we already know who you are. That's okay. We're going to tell you who we are, kind of what books we enjoy, how we became readers, and what you can expect to hear from us coming up. And I would be horrible if I went first. So Bianca, why don't you tell everyone kind of like how you became a reader or why you became a reader? Sometimes those things are the same thing and sometimes they're different. So how and why did you become a reader?
So I'm going to be the cliche and say I've always been a reader. Ever since I was little, my parents would read to me little Dr. Seuss books. And the way I learned to read is that my mom would read me a story before bed. And I eventually memorized the story. And then I would know like when to turn the page and stuff. And so I eventually learned like what the words were that she was reading. And ever since the fateful day of Clifford the Big Red Dog, I have been a reader.
Nice.
Yeah. In my early days, I was a great illustrated classics girl. You would not catch me anywhere in public without one.
I think we all loved those.
They were amazing.
They were.
I was actually in Second and Charles yesterday, and I saw some, and I was like, oh, childhood.
Right? So what made you remain a reader, though? Because I know I've talked to a lot of people that are like, oh, I read a bunch when I was a child, but then I stopped. So what's kept you a reader all these years?
You know, that's a great question.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I did take my love of books and turn it into a career.
Mm-hmm.
I studied English, got a bachelor's degree in English, and then I got a master's degree in library science. And I worked at Barnes & Noble for many years, telling people what my favorite books were and selling those books for a company. And now I get to help people in a library discover their new reads for the free. So, yay, nonprofits.
Right, for the free is excellent.
And I love when I blow people's minds. They're like, oh, I had no idea about this. And I'm like, I know, right?
I always love the feeling when you share a book with somebody because I think a lot of our friends are readers. I always love when I share a book with somebody and they're like, I've never heard of that. That sounds amazing. Like it makes me feel happy inside, which is, I don't know, also cliche and funny, but it's kind of interesting. Not only sharing a book with someone and them enjoying it, but I also think sharing an author with someone, that's been really big too. I think one of those like funny stories. So Bianca and I, if you ever see those memes that are like, keep moving forward because one day you'll finally meet your internet best friend. That's how Bianca and I actually became friends.
That was us.
Yes, that was us. So we actually lived not too far from each other, but there was a group where I think I was friends with pretty much everyone in the group, and you were also friends with pretty much everyone in the group. It was a very small, like local oriented, like inner circle kind of thing. I think that's what we even called it, wasn't it? The inner circle or something?
Well, there was one was the inner circle, and then one was geek something.
Yeah. But it was all like friends of friends. Like it was a very small group, less than 100 people. Pretty much everybody like really did know everybody else. And there was a small contingent in there that was like, hi, I'm a reader who wants to do this book club. And Bianca, and of course you guys all know Jenny, Bianca, Jenny, and a couple other people were like, me. And so Bianca and I just started talking about like, well, what do you like to read? What do you like to read? Well, I like this. And I think it was maybe about a solid year before we actually met each other, even only living like 25 minutes away from each other.
Yeah, it took a hot minute.
Yeah, I think it was like a solid year and a half, something like that. Because you were actually in school at the time. I don't even know if you and Brad were married just yet. Maybe you just gotten married?
I don't think we were married when you and I met.
No, maybe not. But you guys, you were super busy. You were still in school, and you were working all the time. And then, of course, I had a tiny Caden at the time. And so it just didn't work out. And finally one day we met, and we've been on we've been trips to see musicals. We've been to meet one of our favorite authors together. Yeah. So books brought us together.
Aww. It's a true love story.
Right, it is. So the way I got into reading also is pretty cliche and very similar to your story. My mom, when I was very little, was a single mother, and so we lived with my grandparents, and my grandmother basically was the person that took care of me, night, day, all of that, so my mom could work. And my favorite books as a child were Little Critter by Mercer Mayer, or anything by Mercer Mayer, really. And the same thing happened to me. She would read them to me, and obviously I would bring her like the same 4 or 5 over and over again. And if that's what happened, I was like you. I eventually like memorized the words. I knew when the page was supposed to turn. And then it helped me in the same way it helped you, for the fact of then I could pick up other books by myself because I knew the words from the other books. Like I had memorized them, which led everyone to think I was some like genius, because they were like, she can read. It basically was just memorization, which actually led to me. I don't know if this is the same one with you, but it actually led me to kind of read at a higher level for a little bit. But then I think I kind of got stuck. I found my loves after I got older, and that's where I kind of like have stuck myself. Why I stayed a reader, though, has a lot to do with as I was growing up, like popular to contrary belief, my family wasn't like rich, and so the free 99 that you now offer people was very enticing. And I worked at the library for the school, and then I would go to the public library because obviously I could take myself there, and it didn't cost, except for when I habitually forgot to bring my books back on time, because I am that person.
Those late fines will get you every time.
They will, but then I finally, as an adult, was like, you know what? These late fines help pay for this stuff in this library, so it's okay. That's what I told myself. But that's why I stayed a reader. And I think the reason I stay a reader now is it's because it's kind of a form of escapism, even with what I sometimes delve into can be pretty intense. But I still find it as like a form of escapism. It's another world. It takes you somewhere else for a moment, I guess. I also like to say a lot because that's how I process thoughts. Sorry, folks. But that's why I stayed a reader. One of the things I forgot to ask you when you were telling us about how you became a reader is, what is your favorite book? And if it comes from childhood, or maybe you have 2 separate ones. So like, what is your favorite book from childhood? And like, what is your just favorite book in general? I think we've discussed this, but
So picking a favorite book for me is like asking a parent, which I am not, to pick a favorite child. And it's very difficult.
It is very difficult.
The ones that I tend to gravitate towards most, I'll put it that way.
Okay.
There is a YA book called Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. It is
Yes.
It is fantasy. but I like to think of it as superheroes. It's very heavily influenced by X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
But this girl basically goes on a quest to save her family, and in that quest she discovers she has special powers. But she is of a certain human lineage, I'll put it that way, that is not supposed to have powers. Okay. So it's kind of a thought stumper there. And the rest of the book is kind of her figuring out why she has these powers, what can she do to help her kingdom with these powers, and it progresses from there.
Now that one is actually, is it a trilogy?
It's a, whatever you call 4 books.
Oh. Quintet?
I think it's something.
But
she also has a collection of novellas that goes along with it, of short stories. Okay. So it's like it's a whole thing.
Yeah, because that's one that it's usually in my wheelhouse to read, but for some reason I have just never made it to it yet. I think that's a struggle that we all have. The TV show will be coming on Peacock. Oh, that's right.
At some point, we do not have a date. They haven't even started shooting yet. They're still working on the script. But Victoria Aveyard actually has a bachelor's degree in film writing. So she is helping with the first few episodes to write the pilot and get all that down.
Oh, I love when they include the authors, regardless of
I know, it makes me so happy.
Yeah. Well, because then they get a sense of exactly where they wanted the direction to go. So I'm okay with it.
But from I want to say from a childhood perspective, but I wouldn't really call myself a child when I read this because I am from the Bible Belt, so this was not allowed. I finally got my hands on Harry Potter when I was 17 years old, and I've probably reread that series at least 10 times since then.
I was going to ask, what is a series that you would reread over and over? And I already knew the answer, but I was going to ask that question. And I giggled. Everybody's like, don't make fun of Bianca. I'm not. In case you haven't heard, you can go over to the Jenny's podcast that she has, that we're home, part of the Jenny position. And there's actually a podcast that featuring Bianca called Bianca's First Time, because our sweet bee here did grow up in the Bible Belt, and there were a lot of movies that she also was not privy to until she was older. Hence the title of the podcast. It's her and Jenny watching them. With her watching and reviewing them for the first time. So go check that out as well. I'm sure that is probably that topic is going to come up while we're doing this podcast as well, because I feel like maybe there were other books that you didn't read until you were older as well, that most of us possibly did read at a younger age.
Most definitely. Every time people came in for their summer reading to Barnes & Noble when I worked there, and it was always the same number of books. But I did not read 1984 until 3 years ago.
Shut up! I did not realize that.
I've never read Brave New World. Really? There's another popular one that I did. Oh, crap! What's the one about the kids? They're kids stranded on an island.
Lord of the Flies?
Yeah, that one.
Caden's read that one.
Yeah, I've never read that one.
So maybe that a thought just popped into my head. You guys are learning with us as we go here. But maybe that's something we can do throughout our podcast ventures here, is we can read a book that obviously I have had to. Most of these that you're mentioning are required reading for the school system I was part of. So maybe we will add that into this somehow, where I have you read what was required.
I have homework.
You have homework. And hey, are you okay with that? Because you're done with school now.
Yeah, that's fine.
You're done with school now, yeah. I had another really good question, and then I forgot it. So you have reread Harry Potter a bunch of times. Your favorite, I understand, I'm only a mother of one, and I still have a hard time picking. But I have an absolute favorite book of all time that has molded me, I think. It's even probably my favorite childhood book as well, but I also have a favorite series from childhood too. If you've met me and you don't know that my favorite book is Alice in Wonderland, then do you even know me? Probably
I knew that was
not. Right? My favorite book of all time is Alice in Wonderland. This is also my favorite childhood book. Any iteration of Alice, you can probably hand it to me. I will probably read it. For example, there's a really good YA retelling called Alice in Zombieland. Chef's kiss.
Oh, I haven't done that one. I've done Splintered.
Oh, that one is fabulous too. I'm actually doing a reread of that because it's somewhere I've missed a book. Splintered is another good one. And then there's actually, I'll have to look it up. I want to say the guy's name is Jace. I want to say Crawford, but I think I'm just thinking of that because of the TV actor. Maybe it's Cameron. I had never heard of him before. I found him thanks to Kindle Unlimited, and he has a whole retelling of Alice that is really cool. It's kind of twisted, but not in like a it would bother you way. It's just twisted because she actually is in an insane asylum because no one does believe her. It's very, I don't know. It's very different, but I've really enjoyed it. There's a lot of those in that series that he writes. But yes, it is my absolute favorite. My favorite series from childhood was actually the Chronicles of Narnia.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
I've
read that many a time, too.
Yes, including The Magician's Nephew. Everybody always skips that one.
And I don't know why I love that one.
It's such a good story. My uncle was one of those people that would nurture my reading, and so he bought me that whole series one year for Christmas, and I think maybe that's why it's my favorite. I had it had this box, the whole slip thing, and you put them all in there. It was a fantastic series. Author, do you have a favorite childhood author? Maybe
childhood author? I don't think so. I went through, I feel like every person, if they're a reader, they go through either a Nancy Drew phase or a Hardy Boy phase.
Oh, for sure.
I was definitely a Nancy Drew reader.
I read both, but more so Nancy Drew. I preferred Nancy Drew. Yeah.
So Caroline Keene, I guess.
Oh, sure.
There was a mystery series. I remember the main character was called Mandy, and she had a cat, and the cat was leash trained, and they went on like mystery adventures together, and they would be like Sherlock and solve crimes. I wish I could remember what their series was called.
Well, that sounds like a Google waiting to happen.
I'm doing it right now.
I had someone do this for me once. Since you're doing it, I'll tell a quick story. I had someone do this for me once. I have a friend that's a school teacher, and she's one of the smartest people I know as well. And I had a book that I loved that I was required reading when I was in like middle school. So I want to say like 7th grade. And I could not remember for the life of me the name of this book. And so I was like very vague. I was like, she has telekinesis and she lives in an apartment building and her mom's a single mom. And within like minutes, like she like typed back and she's like, the girl with the silver eyes. And I was like, how did you do that so fast?
It's magic.
It's magic. But that is a book that I absolutely love. But I was able to do that for someone the other day in one of the book groups I'm in. The girl was like, sorry, this is going to be vague, but it's like vampires and her friend are at a field party in the very first like opening. And I was like, Alexandra Harvey. And she's like, the Drake Chronicles. She's like, how did you? And I was like, I don't know. But for some reason, as soon as you said that, I was like, yes, which another excellent book series that is unheard of. Like, I think it was another one of those I found when Barnes & Noble had their, which they still have one, the little e-reader thing, but like when it first came out.
Yeah, the Nook.
Yes, thank you. I had one, and I found you could just find like free books all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I found her that way. So yeah, I love when people come in and ask weird random questions about books. So what was your series?
It's just called the Mandy series. It is by Lois Gladys Leopard.
Well, Miss Leopard has a nice name there. I hope that's not a pen name.
I honestly don't know. I remembered the Lois part. I was like, Mandy, Lois, children's series.
Oh, there you go. I've never read that one. I like the sound of that. Sounds pretty good. Obviously, I mentioned Mercer Mayer earlier. I still have a deep attachment to Mercer Mayer books of all kinds. I really want to get the little critter tattooed on me somewhere.
Do it.
I will. If somebody was like, get a tattoo of this, I'd like, okay, sure. Yeah. What are you, is there a book series that you're currently reading or a book in general? I know, so Bianca has just finished what I'm going to say is her final degree. We'll see about that. So she hasn't had a lot of time for extracurricular reading. So I know you were excited to get back into reading once you completely finished school. So what have you been reading recently?
So what's today? Today is Sunday.
It is Sunday.
Friday, I finished reading Where the Crawdads Sing.
Oh, I haven't read that one yet.
I typically try to avoid the quote popular books simply because I tend to get burned with them. Because people are like, oh, this is fantastic. This is great. And then I read like the first chapter. I'm like, this is trash.
I have noticed when we've talked about, like we've been messaging each other about books and stuff, there have been several times that typically they don't go over very well with you. And they're the quote unquote like Oprah book club or Reese Witherspoon's book club that you're just like, eh.
Now, I will say Reese Witherspoon's book club,
hers is
much
pretty
better.
good.
Yeah.
I've
read a few from there, and they're pretty good. Oprah, no. Oprah doesn't know what she's talking about. Oprah will never sponsor us, sorry.
Her books, like she loved it, so she put it on her book club.
Yeah.
Yeah. There have been a few of hers I've read across the years that I've been like, okay, that was thought-provoking, that was good. My grandmother used to buy a lot. My grandmother's a big reader. Probably why she taught me to read. But she's read a bunch off of her book club, and she's enjoyed them. But sometimes she's like, not for me. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I finished Where the Crawdads Sing on Friday. I highly recommend that one. For once, a popular book. It was really good.
Okay.
The movie does come out in July. I have plans to see it with a friend of mine here in town because she read it before I did, surprisingly. And she was like, Bianca, you have to read this. And I was like, okay, calm down. I read it, ended up loving it. I tend to spin that one like an updated version of To Kill a Mockingbird. Okay. And I say that lightly because I am not a fan of To Kill a Mockingbird. Like, does it have its place in literature? Yes. Does it represent Old South? Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But Where the Crawdads Sing is like a better updated version of that, and it still deals with town prejudices. But I think it does it in a way that a lot of more people can relate to outside of just To Kill a Mockingbird. Just because I think, does racism still exist? Yes.
Absolutely.
But it's not as starkly contrasting as it was for To Kill a Mockingbird. It's more subtle.
Okay.
And that's how Where the Crawdads Sing approaches it.
Okay, I might give it a shot then. I'm like you. One of two things happens when a book is listed as like highly popular, really big. One that I'll reference is like years ago when everybody was reading 50 Shades. Like everybody was talking about it. Everybody was reading it. I was like, I don't know about this. I don't understand why everyone's so excited about it. So I bought it when it was on its hype because I wanted to know what everybody was so hyped up about. But usually I'm like you, like I don't go there because I either get burned or, and it's like, I hate to say that buying a book is ever a waste of money, but if I don't finish it, which there's only been a few times in my life that I did not finish a book, which you guys might, I usually refer to as like a DNF. So as we're moving forward, if you hear me say DNF, that means like I didn't finish it. That usually seldom happens because I usually force myself to finish the book. And that sounds bad, but I'm just a weird person that can't not finish a book.
I do the same thing. I think there's only been 2 books in my life that I've not been able to do.
I think I finally hit book number 2 the other day. It's been a short time ago, but there was book number 2 I hit the other day. I just couldn't do it. The first book that I did not finish, which I've talked about I don't know who I've talked about this on my podcast in the past, but I don't remember who, when, where, why. The very first book that I did not finish was actually given to me as an ARC with the like caveat, like, hey, I know you're okay with romance, and I know you're okay with like kind of going kind of out there, but just so you're aware, there's blood and things like that in it. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Like, if I can't finish it, I'll come to you first before I write my review. Like, I won't like just do that to you. And the author was really, really nice about it. And I did hit a certain point where I just couldn't finish. It was a little, I don't know what it was about me, because it wasn't violent or anything, but like, I just couldn't handle the amount of blood that was going on. And I hit a point where I was like, I just can't even force myself to finish it. So I kindly wrote the author, and I was like, you did warn me. Like, you gave me an out, but I told you, like, I should be fine, and I'm not fine. Like, are you okay with me writing? Because you're actually a great author. Your descriptions of things are so fantastic that I'm gagged out and I can't finish. Like, she's a great author.
At least you were honest.
Right. I told her, like, this was a private message between me and the author, and I was like, you're a great author. I was like, you know how to write a book. I was like, something in your book is keeping me from being able to finish. And she was like, no, I appreciate that. I was like, so are you okay with me writing this, saying, you know, I received this as an ARC. Like, the author's fantastic. Please try her works. Just wasn't for me. And she was like, absolutely. And I still gave her 4 stars, which for me is weird, but her writing style was very good. She was very clean. She was very concise. She got her point across. She was a fantastic author. And I think I tried something of hers again later, another novella that she wrote, and I made it through it and I liked it. But that one just wasn't for me. I want to say, if I remember correctly, it was a vampire kind of sort of romance, like dark romance. And there was just like a lot of blood swapping and letting and stuff that I couldn't handle.
No, I don't blame you there.
No,
I don't think I can.
You actually have a hard no. Like, I have a gray area where I'm like, let's try it. Bianca has a hard no.
Yeah, mine is when we get into adult fun time.
You want the door to close and just to know it happened, right?
I want the PG-13.
Yeah.
I don't need to know what happens behind that door.
So you want them to like kiss, close the door, and then the next day come out smiling, basically.
Exactly. No, I don't
want
need
them
the
to leave the door open. Tell me about it.
Like, TikTok keeps trying to put me on smut talk, and I'm like, this is not me. Please unsubscribe.
I wonder if it's because I've sent you. So Bianca and I throughout the week actually converse in TikToks.
I mean, like any sane people.
Right. This is how sane people communicate. So we converse in TikToks, and I send her TikToks. There's a couple of authors I follow and I read that I know you don't, but their TikToks are funny. Like Lila Dubois. I know you don't read Lila's work, but she's excellent. And she does character protective services. She's the one I sent you. I wonder
Yeah.
I wonder that, and there's another girl that I follow on there. I wonder if that's why they keep trying to push you over on smut talk.
You and Hope and Kelly and another one of my friends, Kat, they all send me
Hope
smut talk videos. And I mean, like, I'm glad you think of me, but don't think of me in that way.
No, I don't think of you as in reading. I think of you as in, like, when I sent you a lot of the ones that are Lila's, it's because, like, her husband, so Book Talk is fabulous for those of you. If you aren't on TikTok, but you're part of the book community, I would recommend getting a TikTok just to watch Book Talk. Like,
yes,
regardless of what genre you are a fan of. It's highly entertaining. Some of them are really funny. And
you'll discover new books that you didn't even know about.
You really will. And sometimes, like, you send me TikToks of people saying something about a book that I'm like, I've never heard of this, or it's a book that, like, I didn't even know anybody else knew about, and this person is gushing over it, and then I get happy because I'm like, yeah. I love Lila so much because her husband has now gotten in on the act, and he's helping her, like, package books, because I guess she didn't feel confident about keeping a lot of books on hand and selling signed books. She thought that no one would buy all of them from her, and she keeps just selling out, like she can't keep them in stock. And I guess
I'm happy for her.
I am too. But I guess her husband did a TikTok for her while she was sick back a few weeks ago, and you can tell, like, how much he loves her and supports her. He's like, I Irish, I believe, Scottish or Irish, and he's got the like adorable little accent. And they did one where he was like, "So I was right," and she's like, "You were right," because he had encouraged her to sell her books. So there's a lot of authors on there on Book Talk that maybe you're not interested in their books, but they do like really funny things. Like she does the Character Protective Services. It's pretty funny.
Well, and I've discovered an author that writes romance but keeps it PG-13, and she's called The Modest Something. I need to look it up.
Oh, yes. I don't remember either. And if I open TikTok, it's going to make noise right now, or I already looked it up. There's another one I keep meaning to send you that I think you would like. Her stuff is very cutesy. It's like they just like kiss or hold hands or like, yeah, that's it. Or she insinuates that something may happen, but like nothing.
Yeah.
And it's very sweet. And there's a lot of comedy. Her name is Ann Kemp.
That name sounds familiar.
I think I may have sent you something. They're very short reads, too, because I know you speed read like a crazy person.
I mean, I try. There's so many books, so little time.
So, exactly. My TBR list is officially, like, bigger than anything I could ever get to.
I came to grips with mine a long time ago. I will never read all of my books, and that's fine.
No, but if I could just come back as a ghost, either of a library or a bookstore where I could continue to read, that would be
But back to your original question that we got way off on track on.
Well, ask me what your hard no was.
Oh, okay. I thought we were still on current reads.
Did I miss it? Is there one that I didn't let you answer? I apologize.
No, I thought we were still on current reads.
Oh, well, yes. I mean, if you have more, I've forgotten that I thought Crawdad was it. You go for it.
This is great. Okay. So after I finished Crawdads, I started a book called The Secret by Eva Hoffman. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. Okay. She actually wrote the book Lost in Translation.
Okay.
It's another book/movie that I've never read or seen, so come at me if you want to. But I got The Secret from the library that I work at. I knew nothing about it going in. It was just on a recommended thing, and it was like this strange mystery around this girl. She doesn't know who she is, and I'm like, that sounds up my alley. I'll get it. I read half of it in like 3 hours.
Again, you have this speed beat ability that I don't understand.
Well,
my husband has it too. It's okay.
Depending on how this book ends, I might recommend it to you.
Okay. I think I actually had it on my list. I think someone else was like, you need to read this. And I was like, what's it about? And they're like, you just need to read it. And I'm like, oh, okay.
So all I knew about this book going in was that this girl didn't know who she was. I was like, okay. That sold me.
I like anything like that.
Well, that's how, you and I both also like to go into, like, Colleen Hoover books blind, so.
Oh, absolutely. I
feel like it's just that.
I love, what I love about Colleen, though, is that one could be a romance, clearly defined romance, and another one is not at all.
Yes. My favorite one's actually Verity, and she's never written anything like that.
And
ever.
There is, like, hard no stuff in that book, too.
I know, but it's so good.
It is so good.
Because stuff happens in those hard no's. What is happening?
It's a...
Sorry, something popped up on the computer. I don't know what that was.
Oh, it's okay. I didn't hear anything, so you're good.
Okay. I started hearing hard rock music in my headset.
Oh, well, I can't hear it, so yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Yes, Verity is very good. Let's see. So current reads, those are the only two that you have right now?
Yes.
Because I'm a weirdo, and I usually have a physical book, an ebook, an audio book, and then something pertaining to homeschool all going at one time.
I don't know how you do that.
I don't either.
I would be so lost.
I think because most of the time they're total opposite. So like the audiobook that I'm listening to right now is a psychological thriller. And then the book that I'm listening or that I'm reading for homeschool is about how it's about like unschooling and like helping your child, like teaching them to their potential, like their ability. And then the ebook that I'm reading is like a cozy mystery paranormal whodunit. So like they're all so different that it's not, I'm not confusing them. It's not like I'm trying to read two books in the same genre or something that is very similar. So
I guess that makes sense.
yeah. I shouldn't do those things. This is what happens when you have ADHD, okay? Because I also do this thing where sometimes I pick up the book, and it's not that I'm not going to finish it, but at that moment I can't do it. It's not that there's anything wrong with the book. It's like my brain won't let me concentrate on it.
I've had that happen before.
Yeah, so I either have to go to a different book or just do something totally different. Because I hit reading slumps. I'm sure you hit reading slumps too.
When I hit a reading slump, I realized that I'm just not reading what I need at that time. So like on Book Talk a while ago, there was a book that went viral called I can never pronounce it correctly. Omniculus. Starts with an O. Hold on.
Is that the one you have a special order that you were telling me about?
Yes.
I still have not gotten a copy because it's hard to get. Like
I did. It came in. I started it. Omnioculus, maybe. It's something like that. I had to get it shipped in from Britain.
Yes.
It is British.
Mm-hmm.
But I got it in. I was super excited to start it. I got like 2 or 3 chapters in, and it was not for me at the time because it is fantasy, and I was just not in a fantasy mood.
Right.
Turned out I was in a true crime murder mood. So
see, I go through those kicks too, where I'm like, no, right now I need to be trying to go to sleep and be scared.
Yeah.
I also go on those kicks, and I think I'm glad you said that because I think sometimes when people go into reading slumps, they're like, oh, it's because I don't have time. And I have often found it's that I'm not reading the right thing at that moment.
I think it happens to every reader too. I don't think we're alone in that.
No, because I've even hit some points in my life, like looking back, where I don't think I touched a book for like a whole year, which is sad to say, but like events in my life or whatever, I just didn't touch a book or especially when I was trying to do the college thing, I just was I didn't want to look at another book, which, like at the end of the day, after looking at those textbooks all day, I didn't want to look at another book.
Oh, I don't blame you at all.
So I would have moments of that. Currently, so the ones I currently have going, audiobook wise, it's book 2. In I think it's like 5-book series by Rachel Kane. It's called Kilman Creek. Trying to figure out the best way to describe it without giving away what happens in book 1 because I want people to read book 1, which is called Stillhouse Lake. But Stillhouse Lake is actually loosely based off of a true crime that happened, but it's the after effects of that said true crime, which Bailey Sarian just did a video on the true crime that this was actually based off of a couple weeks ago.
Oh, really now?
Yeah. So there's a man that was unfortunately kidnapping, raping, and murdering young women, and he was doing it in his garage. And the whole time, his wife and children were in the house and had no clue, like legitimately had no clue. We're not a part of it. He kept his garage totally locked. They weren't allowed to come in, and it would have never been discovered except for someone had a car accident one day and plowed into their garage and busted the whole thing wide open because he had a woman still hanging there when that happened.
I'm literally doing like the emoji wide-eyed face right now. What the crap?
So that's where this series kind of starts, it's his wife and children dealing with the repercussions of being his wife and children. And people swearing that she did know and she was an accomplice and she was part of it. And in book 1, he actually gets out of prison and he's been like, there's a whole group of people that are after them, and now he's after them. And book 2 is more of the same. Part of what happens in book 1 gets cleared up, but then in book 2, she's still kind of in hiding, or she thought she could come out of hiding a little bit more, and she can't. It's very interesting because it's kind of based on that thing that really did happen, all in a fictional sense, but it is not so much about. It is about what he did, but it's not a story of what he did or what he's doing. It's more of, here's the horrible repercussions of what he did to those that actually loved him.
And see, that's almost worse than what he was doing, because everyone else has to deal with his mess ups.
Yes. Because it was multiple young women. And one of the people that's a main character in the stories now is one of his victims' brother. He's dealing with the aftermath of, like, he was fighting for our country in the Middle East, and his sister was murdered like she was while he was away. And so he's dealing with the after effects of, like, I should have been here, so this would have never happened to her. And obviously this guy's wife is dealing with the whole, like, how did I not know? How was I so blind? And she's also coming to the realization of realizing that she was a victim of his abuse as well. Like, she didn't realize, like, all of the rules that he had on her. Like, you have to wear this. You can't go into my garage. You have to do this. Dinner has to be at this time. Like, she's now realizing that, like, she's having to take back the power as well. So I don't know. It's crazy. But I'm on book 2. I would highly recommend it if that's something, like, if that's in your wheelhouse, like if that's a genre you can tolerate. What
was the title and author again?
So the author is Rachel Kane. The first book is actually called Stillhouse Lake. And then the second book that I'm currently almost finished with is called Kilman Creek. I think there's 5 total with a 3.5, 4.5 somewhere in there as well.
Because I may or may not have Goodreads up on the computer. So
I highly recommend pulling up Goodreads or Audible or Amazon or wherever you prefer to look up books while you're listening to us. Because we've already popped off so many book names. Like,
that's going in my want to read.
Yes. I recommend it. Rachel Kane is actually a really good author. I don't know if you ever read her before, but she does one of my favorite paranormal YA series called Morganville Vampires.
I've never heard of that.
It came out, it probably came out when you were not allowed to read stuff like that.
Okay.
I think the first book came out in, I was hoping it would tell me. The first book came out in 2006.
Okay.
Yeah, so I highly recommend those as well. I think there's like 12, 13, 14. I was so into that series at one time that they were talking about doing a television series or a movie that I had like a list of who I thought should play who.
Oh, every teenage girl does.
I wasn't a teenager, but okay.
Sorry, I was a teenager at that time.
I gave birth to Kaden in 2006.
Okay, never mind.
I was 21.
Sometimes I forget our age difference.
I do too sometimes. I forget. What year were you born?
91.
Oh, yes. Yes. You and my brother are almost the same age. My brother was born in 90. So yeah, I'm 6 years older than Bianca. Every now and then. Because there's like a movie once that you're like, I've never seen that. And I was like, what? Like, and that's how we had the whole discussion.
It blows people's minds that I've also never watched Buffy. And I'm like, it was just like on the cusp of, it was too adult for me when it was popular. Because I was still a little young for it.
I could see that. It's fantastic, though.
I know. Everyone tells me. One day I'll get to it.
It is one of my favorite all-time television series. And they've done an amazing job with carrying it on in the comics, too.
Oh, yeah. I always forget there's comics for that.
There are comics. And you'll have to remind me. This sounds really bad that I don't remember this. You have read comics, but they're not really part of your, like, repertoire, correct?
No, they have to be, like, something really special for me to read.
Okay.
I've read a few of the Doctor Who comics.
Yeah.
I used to be really into Archie when I was little.
Archie was good.
Like, I would, every time I went to the grocery store, I would grab the newest Archie.
Well, Archie was clean, so yeah.
Yeah. There's another Paper Girls. I think
Paper Girls was really
James
good.
got me into that for a while.
Yes.
And then I've also started, I forget what it's technically called, but the Netflix series Key House, I think is what it's called, is based on it.
Lock and Key?
Lock and Key, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've read the first 4 of those.
That's a really good one. Really good one.
It's very graphic, but I like the plot.
Yeah, it's really good. Did you do the graphic versions of Lunar Chronicles?
I did not.
Highly recommend.
Okay.
They're really good.
Okay.
Really good. Which Lunar Chronicles is actually another series that Bianca and I both really love. I fell in love with that one. I think you're actually the one that was like, you need to read this.
Probably. I recommended it to everybody. That's another one I've read a few times.
It's fantastic.
So they are storybook retellings.
Yes.
They go with Cinderella, Rapunzel, Snow White. Who am I forgetting?
Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, yeah, Beauty and the Beast, yeah.
But they're not in the traditional sense that you would think of. Like, as you're reading the story, you kind of get that it's a loosely based retelling, but overall, like...
Prince Kai still has my heart.
Yeah. Which leads me to a question. When you're reading a book, do you and you start picturing people in your brain, which is what I do. Is it regardless of what the author describes them as, like you still have a mental picture? Do you do that, or do you strictly go off like what the author says the person would look like?
So I do not go off what the author says they look like, and I'm sorry for everyone who does.
I don't either.
You can be mad at me. Like, my absolute favorite one to describe to people is that when I first read Twilight, y'all, I was a twihard.
Me too. Go for it.
Loved Twilight.
I've reread that one so many times. Don't care how you feel.
I just did a reread last year of it.
I should.
But when I first read Twilight, Edward was very emo in my head. Like, he had jet black hair. He had, like, the swoop on his forehead. He had, like, jet black eyes, really white skin, and he dressed all in black.
To me, he was like Jared Leto circa 2006, 2007.
Let me Google that.
So when he was 30 Seconds to Mars, like when he had shorter hair.
Yes, that's how I pictured him.
That's how I pictured Edward.
Yes. And then when my one of my best friends, Lindsay, she was also very into Twilight. She was like, I don't understand how someone has copper hair. And I'm just like, what are you talking about?
Copper hair's a thing, yeah.
She was like, well, the author says that Edward has like copper hair. And I was like, where? Are we reading the same book?
But if you go off the description that she gives for Bella, I think Bella is supposed to look more like
Bella's supposed to look like the author.
Yeah, which
Stephanie Meyer.
She looks more like her friend. That has become big in the acting world, and I know her name, and it just is bleh.
Are you talking about Anna?
Yes.
Yeah, Anna Kendrick.
Yes. So essentially, according to Stephanie Meyer, Bella should look more like Anna Kendrick.
Yeah.
Not Kristen.
That is very true.
It's funny.
But yeah, that's always my favorite one to describe to people is that Edward was emo. And people look at me like I have 3 heads. And I'm like, I'm sorry, that's just how Bianca's brain interprets.
That's how it is. I do that a lot, like especially for my brain is not braining at this current moment. It's not doing what it's supposed to do.
Come on, brain, think of things.
Do. Yeah, it's not going to do it. But when I first thought of PETA, okay, because I can think of his name right now, it's not what we got.
No, it is not.
It's not what we got.
No.
Like, I almost had Kellen Lutz that actually was in Twilight.
Yeah.
I don't know why,
No,
but that's
we got a short king for PETA.
I mean, short kings, I'm okay. I've never been able to date a short king, but I'm here for short kings. It's nothing against you guys. It's me. It's all me.
I'm the same way.
Somebody's like, you discriminate against shorts. Nope.
Nope.
Think
That's
you're
why we
great.
say
It's
short
something
kings.
that it's an internal problem I have. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've always wondered that. I think that's actually one book question that you and I have never had a discussion for. But I've come across people a lot of times where one of two things happen. I'm like, so when you're reading, do you picture? And I had somebody tell me the other day where they're like, picture what? And I'm like, you don't play out the book in your head? And they're like, no, it's words. And I'm like,
yeah, I don't understand how people read and they don't see like what's happening. That blows my mind.
and I've been told that by so many people now that I'm beginning to think maybe I'm the one that's different.
I mean, I picture it with you, so you and I are in the same boat.
Right. Like I
When we read, we see stuff in our heads.
Yeah, I'm visually seeing it like playing out in my head, like how I think it should be.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I come across when people do play it out, they're like, no, I play it out the way the author describes it. And I'm like, I can't. Like, even when they're describing like this house or something, the background in my head, I still have like, and it has more to do with, it's not just the description. It's like what's actually going on in the world and the people that like mold what I come up with.
Yeah.
It's like the overall everything.
When it's like anytime I read a fight scene, like if people are like hand-to-hand combat doing stuff, I tend to just skim over that because I literally cannot picture most of what is happening. So I'm just like, okay, they're fighting. Okay, they're fighting. Okay,
Just
they're
next
fighting.
time, go into it like it's a Marvel movie. You've watched plenty of those.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But I can
like-
understand what you're saying about like getting to a part where if it's not something that you're totally familiar with or like what that stance would be, like you would just kind of gloss past.
Yeah. Well, and like I didn't even really think about picturing like what people look like how it was important to the story until just a few years ago. I had joined a Red Queen discussion group, and people since the book got announced it was going to be turned into a series, people were like fan casting who they want to play what, which everybody does.
I'm just saying.
But people were typecasting the main girl Mare as like this little basic white girl, and she's not. She's supposed to be of Mexican descent with like dark skin, with like almost dark red hair that was curly and unkempt, and that's how she's supposed, according to the author, that's what she's supposed to look like. But upon joining this group, with most people, I was picturing her still with tan skin, but as a European tan skin, not Latino. And it turned into this huge thing in the book discussion group, and they actually stopped allowing people to post their fan casts because people were getting so upset that they weren't being represented, which I can understand now, but at the same time, you can't make me see someone how it's not in my head.
Right. It's you want all groups to be represented properly, and you hope that that's what takes place. But as we just mentioned, like when you're reading a book, you picture someone in your head based off of the things that they're saying and the environment that it says they're in, and things like that. Because there was a book I read once where it said that the girl was supposed to be like 5'7", red hair, and I don't care what that author said. I kept picturing her as like 6'2", blonde, Amazonian built. Like she just had this like charismatic thing about her that I just saw her as this big, tough, badass, like she'd be something on the island that Wonder Woman came from, that's how I pictured her. And they're like 5'7", red hair with a turned up nose, and I'm like, no, she's not. No, she's like
not in this brain.
She's like goddess taking me to Valhalla. Like you can't tell me any different. It's not gonna happen. So like I do understand. I felt the same way with The Wheel of Time, which has now actually been turned into a television series. I did read The Wheel of Time years ago. I never finished it all, but I'd read the first few. And so in my brain, I had, and that was partly because on the covers, they had very descriptive pictures that they used at the time. And they were very adamant about how people appeared, because there is actually parts of the storyline where having a certain hair color actually means something. So when I first turned on the show, for a few moments, I was like, okay, well, I don't think that's exactly how they were supposed to look, but it works very well, and it lets a lot of amazing, diverse actors like shine, and it's fantastic. So I think sometimes you also have to separate when a book is turned into a television show as well. Yeah. You have to kind of separate and treat it like this was a book and this is a show, and they're not the same thing.
No, they are two completely different mediums, which actually took a class on that for my bachelor's degree. It's called Film and Fiction.
Really?
And we would read the book and then we would watch the movie. And we wouldn't necessarily compare, but we would say, okay, why would the author take it this way in the book, but then in the movie they go this direction?
So you were kind of comparing, but you were doing more of a compare and contrast, essentially.
Yeah. And most of the time what they did in the movie made sense, because in the book it would just be too long or it was too convoluted to go into. Like there's if you pick a book with a lot of inner monologue, it's hard to convey that on screen.
It is, which is one of my arguments that I have going back to Twilight. I have a huge argument about something that happens in book 2, movie 2, where it was not conveyed well on screen. And I remember.
Oh, you're talking about the depression episode?
Yeah, when she's having like the full on, like what everybody assumes is like this whiny breakdown episode because she's separated from Edward. I remember people in the theater even being like, oh my God, kill me now. Like I remember the guy sitting behind me saying that, and I was like, in the book, it takes like 3 pages to explain, like she's actually feeling like these weird pulls, like she's having dreams and nightmares about where he's at and what's happening to him. And it's strange, and yeah, there's still a lot of, I know there's a lot of like problematic things in the books and movies, but besides that, like I sometimes I hate when that happens, when it doesn't get conveyed well in movie, or like I think there's an opportunity when you turn in something to a book into a movie to let good actors shine, regardless of whether they match up with exactly what that person said they would look like, especially when it doesn't really matter what the author said they looked like. Different people already have it pictured one way.
Yeah, as we've discussed.
Yes, so I'm glad I'm not alone on that. There was another question. So since we're on the topic, really quick, I will ask you, do you have what you feel is like your favorite adaptation? Not necessarily that it matches perfectly or that it's done to the best ability, but do you have what you would say is your favorite adaptation from book to film, whether it be book to TV or book to actual movie?
So I don't have a favorite. I have top 3.
Okay.
And it varies depending on my mood.
Okay.
Number 1, Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows. It was split into 2 different movies. Book, fantastic. Both movies, fantastic. And I understand why things were changed from book to film. But top tier. 2, The Shining, Stephen King. Anyone who has read the book and seen the movie knows that the movie is completely different on a lot of things.
Absolutely, yes.
But still top tier. Number 3 would probably be Hunger Games.
Oh, yes.
The first Hunger Games. Let me specify. The first Hunger Games movie is almost literally the book. They did not change a whole lot.
No, they did.
My cat is now guest starring. Hello, babe.
Hi, babe.
Sorry if you hear meows. But yeah, those are my top 3. I cannot pick a favorite.
Oh. No, it is hard to pick a favorite.
What about you, Miranda?
Now I'm thinking. So I think actually The Wheel of Time is going to have to go up there.
I haven't made it to that yet.
I'm thinking it's so new, but still, I think it is going to have to go up there with how well it was done. I really enjoy it. Highly recommend it. There are a lot of books But if you want to go there, I recommend them as well. Obviously, Harry Potter is always going to be there because I feel like out of all of the movies and all of the books, they were done so closely. I have some gripes along the way. There's a few books where I'm like, wish they'd really paid more attention to this because it made what happened in the book, and it wasn't in the movie. And then an odd one that is one of my favorites that I actually have never been able to read all the books. I'm sorry to the author. I have a hard time reading her books. But I love the on-screen adaptation of, and that's Outlander.
Oh, see, I haven't done that either.
I don't think it's
I've watched the first, I think, 2 episodes, but it was years ago.
This may be a hard stop for Bianca.
Okay, I'll take that into consideration.
I will say that. I love it, and I would like you to like it, but this one may be a hard stop for you.
Okay.
The book for me, I apologize to the author. I did read all of book 1. My problem was from the very beginning, she took like a couple of pages to describe this room and this vase that she's just staring at, that Claire is just staring at in the very beginning of the series there. And it just, she takes too long to describe things sometimes. And I really feel like there's parts of the book that could just have been,
See, that was Christopher Paolini. I think that's how you pronounce the name. With the Aragon series.
Oh, Aragon. Yeah,
I remember trying to read Aragon, and there's like a whole chapter in like the first book of him describing making a sword. I was like, no, we're done.
Yeah. I also would compare it to, sorry to all the Nora Roberts fans, but it's also Nora Roberts when she like takes 3 paragraphs to describe what shade of red her lips are.
Oh, see, I've never done Nora Roberts.
I've tried. I have genuinely tried because my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law are big Nora Roberts fans. They like her as Nora and as J.D. Robb. So okay. I tried to read this trilogy that actually is kind of like very time travel paranormally of her actual under Nora Roberts. And she just took so long to describe a few things that I was like, tired of it. My husband has an author he really likes too that he says is the same way. He describes like bombs and stuff, and he knows he's that way, so he just skips. He's like, oh, I know it's coming. He starts talking about a bomb. I flip like a page, skim. Okay, here we go.
I guess that's one way to go about it.
He's like, he knows he does that, but like he's actually a good author. It's just he has moments where he just like describes it so in depth, and he's like, for my husband, he was like, I was military. I don't need you to describe that to me like piece by piece by piece of this certain gun or aircraft or whatever. He's like, I know. He's like, I don't need you to tell me. So that's where I have a problem. So do you have any genres that you would say that you gravitate towards more than anything else? I
am a YA girl.
Mm-hmm.
I will find the YA section wherever I am.
First thing, boom.
Yep, that's where I gravitate. Now, I've recently gotten into true crime.
Oh, yeah.
I say recently. It's been a couple of years, but it's still recent for Reader Bianca because Reader Bianca has been around for a while. But yeah, I've read a lot more true crime than I ever have in my entire life, and I don't know where that has stemmed from, but here we are.
Well, and I'm surprised. Well, I'm not surprised because, I'm not surprised because most all of our friend group is actually really into true crime. So I wonder if maybe it was one of those, like somebody recommended something and you tried it and you liked it. So you went a little bit further. And now you're in a rabbit hole with the rest of us.
Well, like I've also been reading, I'll say nonfiction, but typically when I say nonfiction, people gravitate towards like World War II history books. That's not what I mean.
Yes, that's when people go immediately. They're like, "Oh, you like this?" I'm like, "No."
I mean, I'm happy for the people that do enjoy that. That's just not for me. I do
love World War II nonfiction, but that's beside the point.
But like, I've been reading. I'll say, crap. What's the phrase? Your like secret indulgences. What's the word I'm looking for?
Guilty pleasures?
Guilty pleasure. There we go.
Sorry. Didn't be on there.
My brain was not braining. My guilty pleasures right now have been like silly reality shows.
Mm-hmm.
So like during lockdown I got really into like Love is Blind and Selling Sunset and
We
stuff
all
like
did.
that.
Well, let me rephrase that. Not all of us did. Not all of us did.
But some of those people ended up writing books, so I read quite a few of those books. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I did not. I haven't read any of the books. I'm not a big reality person, but you guys got me to watch The Love Is Blind. I got all up in that.
And you are welcome.
That was a hoot. I also like nonfiction, but sometimes it is a war story. Most of the time when I say nonfiction, though, it's kind of, I don't know, I guess biographies. I like certain people's biographies, especially when they're funny. I really like Jenny Lawson. If anybody knows who she is, she's really funny. She writes just truth about life, basically. She tells stories of her childhood and her depression, and I think she's a phenomenal writer. I also really like nonfiction in the sense of that when I get a cookbook, I legitimately read a cookbook.
Yes.
So, like, if you ever go to my Goodreads and you're like, you read a cookbook? Yes, I did, Becky. I read a cookbook.
Why would you not?
Well, some of them actually have stories and, like, okay. Yeah. So I don't like when I'm trying to find a recipe and I go to your blog and you give me 4 pages about your trip to Eastern Europe. Just give me the recipe. But if I buy your cookbook, I want to read about your trip to Eastern Europe where you decided to come up with this recipe.
I'm with that logic. I get you.
Time and place. Yep. So I do. I also really like middle grade.
Yeah, you tend to read a lot more, I won't say child literature, but
yeah, I do read a lot of YA. I read a lot of, I do also enjoy middle grade, which my son is 15, and he and I read a lot of it together. I read to him. He's fully capable of reading. His to be read is, it's so large he needs a new bedside table. So he reads a lot as well, but he has very specific, he has like definite pigeonhole areas that he likes to read in. So occasionally we will find books that, and middle grade are usually really easy to read aloud. Like they're not too complicated. And believe it or not, that's where you find like the Art of the Style and the Percy Jackson and the things like that. People don't realize they're technically mid-grade. Harry Potter actually is too.
Yes, it is.
So I encourage people to sometimes kind of go on over to the kids' room and check out the middle grade books because, believe it or not, there's some really good stuff over there, especially if you don't want to get caught up in some of the harder stuff that we deal with every day in life, and it's also in literature. So, like, if you don't want to deal with that, they also do fantasy really well. I feel like I feel
like it's good starter fantasy.
It is good starter fantasy, and sometimes the world building in mid-grade books is just because the imagination is still there, right? I still have mine, but I'm just saying, like, the imagination is still pretty strong at that age. So I actually still highly recommend mid-grade books. I really love YA. I will read graphic novels and comic books. I do love those as well. And then obviously Bianca and I, we both read romance, but I will go into more of what people call dark romance, and I will read what my husband likes to refer to as vampire smut. It's what he calls all of it, regardless if there's even a vampire in it. We share a Kindle Unlimited account.
Oh goodness, that's dangerous.
And so the ads he gets on his Kindle,
I can only imagine.
He'll be like, "What did you get this time?" And I'll be like, "Actually, it's a lovely story." And he reads a lot of fantasy, paranormal. He and I end up reading, there was one series once, he was like, "You really got to try this series, blah, 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 blah." And I was like, "I've already read that one." And he's like, and I was like, "Do you know that that's actually like part of like romance?" And he's like, "Something happens one time." And I was like, "Doesn't matter. It's technically a romance novel." Yeah. And he's like, "No, it's not." I was like, Well, the author was a romance author and decided to go into heavy paranormal fantasy. Whatever. So.
Well, I do have one question for you, Miranda.
Okay, what is the question?
Do you have an author that you will buy sight unseen no matter what the book is?
I have a couple.
Okay.
Colleen being one of them. I think that's a given.
Yeah.
Kim Harrison.
Okay.
She writes a series called The Hollows. It's like 15, 16 books deep at this point. I found her when I first moved to Alabama. Caden was very little, and I knew no one, and the internet sucked so bad. So I did a lot of reading, and there was an article about her. It was actually book 2 of her series. And do you remember that magazine called All You? It was from Walmart, and it was like a book.
I do not.
Okay. I'm old. Okay. So anyway, there was this magazine, and it was new at the time, and they would like do book reviews and TV reviews, and they reviewed her book 2, and I bought book 2 not knowing that it was book 2 and still jumped in and loved it. So I would at this point buy anything that she writes. I feel like I have a couple of others, but you put me on the spot.
You're welcome.
Tanya Kappas is another one. She writes cozy mysteries. They're usually not very complicated. She's also from Kentucky, and that's how I found out about her. Another friend of mine, I guess, is somehow knows her personally, and was like, "Oh, hey, she's an author, and I know you love to read, and she's from Kentucky. You might like that." And now I read whatever she puts out. So sight unseen, I'm buying her stuff. And then Kristen Painter. She's considered romance. You and I have talked about her once before. I don't think it's that you've read any of her stuff. It's that we were talking about narrators one time, audiobook narrators, and she uses the same guy every time. His name's BJ Harrison. Fantastic audio narrator. He just has a way to bring these characters. But she does the Nocturne Falls series, where it's that town in Georgia where actually everyone is a supernatural, but people come there tourist-wise thinking it's just a put on and it's just a tourist attraction thing. They actually are all like some sort of supernatural creature. And each book that she does is a love story between 2 different people. So one is like the gargoyle gets his girl, or the mermaid meets her mate, stuff like that. It's cheesy titles, but I buy her books, no questions asked, because they're just fun, easy reads. I think off the top of my head, that's really, I know there's more, but that's for sure the 3 that I have on my brain right this second. So do you have any list other than Colleen? Because I know Colleen's a given.
Yeah, Colleen's always a given. After reading Red Queen, Victoria Aveyard, she just started her new fantasy series called Realm Breaker. Its sequel comes out in July. I'm super excited.
I have all those on my list, but just haven't done them yet.
One day.
One day. I will get to them.
Victoria Schwab, or V.E. Schwab, she writes under both.
Yes.
I discovered her through The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue.
Mm-hmm.
After reading Addie LaRue, I was like, sold. That book was, it was fantastic. But I've read a couple of other of hers since then. Trying to think.
Ooh, I just thought of one. I have to be super basic, but
okay, be super basic.
Sarah J. Maas.
Now, see,
I'm white girl basic. I can't help it. Like I have my D&D character is created from one of her book characters. I have a Warcraft character that is created from one of her book characters.
Literally everyone I know wants me to read her books.
It is high fantasy with a lot of description and a lot of world building. It's a lot.
I tried to read. Hold on, I know the cover.
There's 2 different book series, and one actually has no Bianca stuff, and the other one not so much.
So I've heard. Throne of Glass.
Yes.
I tried to read Throne of Glass. I could not make it through the first book. I forced myself to finish the first book.
Yeah,
I finished it.
One of my main D&D characters is actually based off the main character of that book.
I guess I need to give it another try or something.
No, you don't have to. It's a lot. They're a lot. Like, I think in audiobook form, they're like 12, 13, 14 hours, something like that. Like, there are some tomes. Like,
well, and Sarah has no lack of words.
No, she does not.
Those books are thick.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a tome. It's a brick.
So,
yeah, she's another one that I thought of, and then another one that absolutely I buy everything she does. Megan Sienna Deutsch.
Never heard of her.
She prints most of her stuff on her own, so I guess she'd be considered an indie author, but she's got a huge following. She's just maybe not, I'd say she's on the same level as like Sarah J. Maas, but her name is not. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
She is fantastic. She has a very good relationship with her readers. Like, she talks, like, we're all in a group with her, and she like talks to us. She has a series that's called the Dowser series, and in it the main character has a cupcake shop, and she makes these cupcakes where it's like sin in a cup, death in a cup, but she actually has the recipes that go along with these. It's very magic, paranormal, romance. I think there are some actual like sexy times a couple of times, but if I remember correctly, it's not so graphic. Like, I think you might be okay with it.
Okay.
It might not be too bad. But if you like that sort of thing, if you like paranormal kind of, because there's werewolves and vampires and ghosts and dragons and yeah.
There's all the creatures.
There are all the creatures. Yep. And she explains them very well and the hierarchies and how it all works. But yeah. Sorry, I knew there were more. Do you have more?
You're fine. Jenny Han. She wrote the To All the Boys I Loved Before series.
Yes, great series.
I loved that series. Also loved the Summer I Turned Pretty series, which will soon be on Amazon Prime. It comes out sometime this month. But yeah, I've devoured most all of her books. I think there's only like one or two I haven't read now. But she's become another one. I'm just like, oh, you published? Okay, you're coming home with me.
You like a lot of meet cute kind of things.
I do. I love meet cutes.
You love essentially Hallmark movie in book form.
They warm my heart so
and I
much.
love just Hallmark movies.
Yes.
I'm going to figure them out in the first 10 minutes, but I don't care. That's like me with the cozy mysteries. I figured them out really quickly.
Well, and cozy mysteries are like fun, easy reads.
They are. And if you don't know what a cozy mystery is, essentially it is a mystery book, but the murder happens off page. Typically your heroine is either she's usually a small town business owner or a librarian or something of that nature. And they usually are the ones that stumble across the murder or get drug into the murder somehow. Typically in book one of your series in a cozy mystery, they always get blamed. Typically they're like a suspect for some weird reason, and they try to prove that they didn't do it, which turns into a whole series of them just being this small town sleuth now. That's the
and it's
typical
amazing.
basis for any cozy mystery usually.
Yeah. But they're normally like shorter stories as well, so you can read them, depending on your speed, in a couple of days.
Oh, yeah. I think the longest one I read, which was very long for a cozy mystery, was about 500 pages. But typically they're no more than like 350.
Yeah.
Which is a smaller book, actually. Well, we talking about bricks over here. Like Priory of an Orange Tree.
I have that sitting on my cart to read. It is literally in my room. It's just so daunting.
Same. I just bought it the other day, and Kaden was like, "Whoa, that's huge, Mom!" Like he was with me.
Did you see the author's TikTok saying
you sent it to me?
Yes.
She was like, "I'm sorry."
Longer.
She wrote a prequel, and she apologized to everyone on TikTok, basically saying, "Sorry, but I wrote a book that's even longer than."
It's like a whole. Basically like 5
she said it's
books
30,000 pages longer than
words, not pages.
And it's 30,000 words, 30,000 words longer. And it's the prequel.
Like 30,000 words is like a whole book in
That's
itself.
a whole book. This may be an odd question, but to kind of like start summing up here, and then we'll maybe explain to people what we hope to do moving forward. Do you have any authors that maybe you read them at one time, but they are on your do not buy list? Do you have a do not buy list?
So I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but Stephen King is one that I will not buy. I enjoy his stories.
But you would at least borrow them.
I would get them from the library.
Okay, so maybe I should rephrase it. Is there an author that you just like won't pick up at all?
Oh, James Patterson.
James Patterson. I feel that.
Seeing all of his books taking up so many shelves, it just angers me. I can't explain it. I have no reason to not like him because I've never read the books, but it just angers me.
So there's
irrational.
a TikTok about that. No, there's a TikTok about that. And either you sent it to me or I sent it to you, but it's this library somewhere where they're talking about how he's literally in every, like he's in nonfiction, he's in middle grade, he's in YA.
He's everywhere.
Yeah, it's an overwhelming amount. And so therefore I tend to
and it's been proven that he doesn't even write the books. Like he has ghostwriters and then he puts his name on them.
Well, and then on a lot of them now, it's like presented by, it's like so-and-so presented by James Patterson.
Yeah.
Which they tell you on the cover. It's not
Which
him.
I saw one yesterday. It was Dolly Parton and James Patterson.
Yes.
I was
so
like,
she
Dolly,
wrote it and he like backed her essentially and like went in and like made sure it was good. But she wrote it.
I just thought Dolly betrayed me.
Yeah. I'm going to get some hate for this because this was my introductory to romance. I used to read everything this man put out. I no longer buy any of them.
Who is it?
Nicholas Sparks.
Can't
do it.
I have never read a Nicholas Sparks book.
Really?
Because he's almost like James Patterson. The whole romance section is taken up with Nicholas Sparks.
Well, see, when I first started reading Nicholas Sparks, I was probably in like middle high school area. And he wasn't. Like he was popular. He was very well known. But like he wasn't like all. And then
he just exploded.
Well, and not just that, like I feel like it's the same story. Kind of over.
Oh yeah.
Like it's the same like 3 tropes over and over. That's not to say though that a couple of his are still not on my all-time like that's a good story. I sobbed my eyes out. Like he's still good. He's still a good author, but I think he somewhere along the way got lost in the sauce for me.
I can get behind that.
Like he found his algorithm and he stuck to it, but he did not deviate, and I can't handle it. So
yeah. Well, he knows his core audience.
He knows his core audience, and maybe my taste just changed. Maybe I went to the dark side and I just don't like it. I don't know.
I tend not to like sappy romance like that anyway, so that's just not in my wheelhouse. Like I remember
you like cutesy. Not sappy.
Yes. I remember one time when I was working at a bookstore and this woman came up and she was gushing over 50 Shades of Grey. Like just gushing over it.
I loved it.
I was just like, oh, it's not for me. I don't like it. She's like, what do you mean you don't like it? And I was like, I don't like romance.
Yeah. It's
like it just deeply offended her. Like she looked like she was about to call for the manager and I was like, okay, bye.
Well, and also when that came out, you were pretty young.
I was in college when it got popular.
Were you? Yeah, okay.
I remember trying, like when the movie, I don't know about the books, but when the first movie was announced, I was working at the bookstore at the time. So I know I was in college or about to finish college.
Okay. No, I read them when the book itself just went big.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I was like, I just got to see what everybody's like big deal is. And then
I read the first couple of chapters and I was just like, this is not for me.
No, it is. It would not be for you.
Because isn't it loosely based on Twilight? Isn't it a Twilight fanfic?
Okay, I have been told that for years, and I guess I can kind of see some comparisons, but I don't know. Everyone swears it is. Everyone's like, I see it plain as day. She stole this. I mean, I see a lot of comparisons, but there's a lot of books that are similar to other books, so I don't know. I don't know how I feel if that one's truth or not.
Okay.
Let's see. I can't think of any more just really amazing book questions. Are there any books that we didn't mention today? And God, we've mentioned a lot. Maybe I can go back and listen to us. And if I have enough wherewithal in me, I will go back and I will list all of them in the show notes. Please forgive me if I do not. Do you have any other books or authors that you really want to mention, you really hope people will check out, or that maybe that you'll find a kindred spirit that also says, like, hey, I love them too?
I think we've mentioned my top ones. Colleen Hoover, Victoria Aveyard, V.E. Schwab. Those are right up there. So if you like any of those, I'm right there with you.
Okay.
I'll fangirl with you.
There you go. Only additional two I would add, which I talk about a lot on other things, are, of course, Agatha Christie and M.C. Beaton. They're my girls.
I've read Agatha. I have not read M.C. Beaton.
M.C. Beaton, unfortunately, passed away a couple of years ago.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's been about 2 years ago. Maybe about 2 years ago now. I think it was like right before the pandemic, maybe, or during it. But she had actually had several things already written. And then there's a very close friend of hers who is an author that part of her will is she left them permission to complete her stories, to finish her stories and carry on.
Aw, yay.
So I know I'm super excited. She's the Agatha Raisin author.
Okay.
So, yeah. So our goal here, guys, is to just have conversations like we did today. I apologize if I was a little rough around the edges. New podcasts always make me have sweaty palms and like Eminem moments, knees weak, mom spaghetti. Like, even though I've been doing this for like 7 years. So please forgive me. But the main point of our conversations here are going to be based on books. Some months we might review a book together, or goals, and fingers crossed, maybe we'll do some interviews. But send in to us, of course, what you would like us to read. Bianca, do you have any places on social media that you're comfortable with people contacting you at? And I say comfortable because like there's parts of my social media that are not open for public consumption. Like
the only profile that is public is my Instagram. I am at Style and Freak.
Yep.
I don't really post book content there. Every once in a while I do, but it's more just my daily life and a lot of cooking stuff. So if you're a cook, I'm your girl.
She's a good one, guys. She is.
I'm just not to toot my own horn, but I make good food. I also have a podcast with Jenny over with Jenny Position. I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you know who Jenny is. Called Bianca's First Time. Go take a listen. We're supposed to record soon, so we'll have new content very shortly.
Cool. And I'm sure any if you listening already know that my home is pretty much here on Place to Be Nation. We have all kinds of things for everyone across what we refer to as quadapods. We have a lot of pods here. We have Jenny Position. We have, of course, Place to Be Nation Pop. We have Place to Be Nation, and then North South. There's a lot. There's something for everybody. We also highly encourage you to come on over to the Place to Be group on Facebook. There is a lot of content for wrestling. There's daily music and music videos and a list of the other podcasts that we have around the world. Of course, as always, you guys can come follow me on my Instagram or in the Place to Be group or even over on TikTok. I'm trying to be the TikTok thing. Yeah.
Be the TikTok star.
I don't know if I want to be a star, but I'm trying the TikTok. I'm actually not physically present in I don't think any of my videos. Maybe one.
I don't think I've seen you in any.
I think my face appears like that. But yes, I have some TikToks. You guys are welcome to follow me. I'm always at Mom's Nerd. And until next time, keep reading.